All right, well, welcome, and thank you, everyone, for having me today. I particularly want to thank Urim and Chris and Sarab, and particularly, I ran into Sarab back in April, and he said, we're holding this conference here, and I want you to speak at NADCON, and hey, we're going to actually be counter-programming NATO. They're right down the block, and I was like, based, But, the point was that, he didn't give me a lot of direction on my speech. He said, as the time gets closer, let's talk about what you're going to talk about. So, Project 2025, anyone heard of that lately? Okay, well, I'm getting a little closer to the time, and I got a lot on my plate. I'm clicking through my emails, and I go to the draft agenda to see whether he put me up on a panel or something, and I'm clicking, and all of a sudden, I'm thinking, well, naturally, you probably want me to talk about Project 2025, but it says, I get to it, it says, why reviving masculinity is the key to everything. And I go, Jesus, kind of a strange topic, but, hey, Sarab, man to man, I'm flattered. If you want me to talk about it, I'm thinking to myself, I can do this. I was a lacrosse player. I have a 700 horsepower Hellcat. I like steak. You name it down the line. So as it's getting a little closer, I'm always kind of kicking around these ideas about talking about masculinity. Lo and behold, like last week, I know you guys go to bed on a Sunday night, and you got to resist the urge to check your emails one more time. But I couldn't, and I did it, and I had gotten an email from Chris DeMuth, and he basically writes me, Paul, please send Urim, copied here, a title for your talk. We're about to go to the press with a program. With all the media conspiracy mongering, you might go with something like Project 2025, the big reveal, or the actual truth about Project 2025. But you may have something of your own and better already prepared. And so it's late Sunday. Actually, no, Chris, I don't have anything prepared. I was thinking I was talking about lacrosse or something. But I sit down and I start sending some potential titles to them, and I came up with, how about Project 2025, Restoring Constitutional Democracy? And I think, well, that's actually not the catchiest thing. Let's try a little bit better. And I think, Project 2025, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Deep State. And then maybe they'd be a little stronger. Project 2025, O Vincere, O Glory. And with respectfully, the Latin part I butchered. I had to call my sister, who's the classics major, to tell me how to even try to say that. But, to be, in all fairness, I probably watched a little more professional wrestling than studying the classics back in the day, which might actually be a little bit better of a foundation for politics. So I wrote back, and I got the answer from Urim, and he basically said, Paul, thanks for your quick reply. NatCon isn't really an appropriate venue for talking about a book you wrote or a project you managed. So, sorry everybody who was hoping to hear about Project 2025. That got shot down last week. But no, the reason why we'll talk a little bit about Project 2025, but really move on to why is Project 2025 necessary in the first place. And that's this administrative state. This is really why we have to think about governing as conservatives. There's what we do here is really policy and making the message. The second part is winning the elections, but the third and most important, I believe, is the actual execution of it. And I think that our movement has not systematically prepared people to go in and accomplish that. And once we recognize that this system was built by the progressives, this is the mission. We are operating in the matrix, and we have to get smarter about how we're going to do that. So, as I said, then my first instinct after hearing that I'm talking about Project 2025, obviously it was a little bit of a letdown. I felt like, hey, I just got cut from the man panel. And, but, you know, the reality is that this is poignant right now. It's, you know, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, is tweeting about it, his campaign continuously. You know, I take a shot at him, but I think it's after 4 o'clock, so he's clocked out by now. The reality is that the debate showed us exactly why Project 2025 is in charge. That man is not running the government. The government is being run by an administrative state. And America kind of got it. This was the moment where everything really mushroomed, and people realized that, like, what we're saying here is that we no longer have a government of, by, and for the people. And that's really the mission of it. We are going back to our constitutional order and saying, you know, we have 3 coordinate branches of government, and the important thing in this democracy, if you will, we are really here to restore democracy, is making sure the people's voice gets heard, namely through their political representative, the president, who is in charge of the executive branch. So that is the fundamental proposition, thank you, that we're aiming for. You know, the reaction to Project 2025 in recent days has just been, you know, overwhelming. Actually, you know, some, you know, means for concern. They're talking now about a Schedule M online, and I don't know if anyone's aware of this. Apparently, Executive Order 66, requiring the Walt Disney Company to delete the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Executive Order 67, deporting any citizens or non-citizens wearing cargo shorts. And Executive Order 68, requiring preschool education to include dual-wielding pistols as an essential skill. So, you know, people have cause for alarm, I guess, and, you know, including that we're going to be mandating Christmas music be played before Thanksgiving. But the reality is everything you're reading about Project 2025 obviously is not in Project 2025. It's the President of the United States essentially punching down at, you know, his fellow citizens. And I would, you know, take a swing at him for punching down at us, but I'm glad he's able to move in the first place. You know, the sad part is the President apparently has about 6 minutes to react to and make a decision about incoming missiles in the United States, and this is serious, you know. And he's going to take 6 minutes to finish a sentence. So we have a real national security threat right now, and it's not Project 2025, I'm sorry to say. So what exactly, why do we need Project 2025? And it's really for all of us as conservatives committed to restoring the nation state. It's that over the last 100 years, a progressive system has been built up through, you know, our friends in Europe and exported to the United States. I sometimes say, you know, thank you, France, for being our original partner in liberty, for bringing us over so many nice things. I'm appreciative of ice cream and French fries in particular, but with respect to your bureaucracy, you guys can keep it. You know, the reality is it's this state that was put in place dating back to really Woodrow Wilson has been building a government of experts. This idea that they're going to essentially rule by an elite cadre of people here in Washington. And that is fundamentally undemocratic. So I think we have to really say, how did we get here, and how are we as conservatives going to change the system? And Project 2025, the real animating purpose of it is the recognition that personnel is policy. That in order to really start working within this matrix and seeing it, it's going to come down to us individually and really making a commitment to it. So, you know, let's review a little bit about how we got to be here, and really say how we can systematically change things for the better. The civil service, if you will, was stood up, you know, in the wake of Tammany Hall and later on the Teapot Dome scandal. Through the Pendleton Act of 1883. And there, you know, the notion was that we would have a professionalized group of nonpartisan experts, essentially, who were removed from kind of political influence, but also, ostensibly immune from kind of, graft and the like, that they would not be so apt towards corruption. That said, that progressed over time. When it was first put in place, 10% of the jobs were consecrated to this merit system. That is, 90% were going to be still appointed. Over time, over the next 100 years plus, we've moved from 10% to 99.8%. So the pendulum has moved from correcting for this potential, graft and political cronyism, all the way to a place where a president who is vested with the power under Article 2, Section 1, has the inability essentially to hire and to fire the own workforce that he's charged with executing the laws above. So there is going to have to be a correction. And actually there's a fair amount of bipartisan, believe it or not, consensus on this. The stabs at civil service reform really started in earnest in the 1970s under a Democrat president, that is Jimmy Carter, and with the enactment of the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978, which created the Office of Personnel Management. Now, their notion, even at that point, was that we needed to have political management on top of this bureaucracy. So let's look what the political bureaucracy, political management structure is right now. We're talking of a federal workforce of about 2.2 million federal workers. The president typically appoints 4,000. So if you're doing the math, that's 1 to 500. Which is a pretty incredible, a pretty daunting ratio if you think about it. Now, layer on top of that here in cosmopolitan DC, the electorate votes about 95% Democrat. The actual full-time federal workers, studies have shown, make political donations on the order of 95%. So when you're a political appointee, a conservative walking into a building, you're already facing a real uphill slug. That is, the majority of the building, vast majority, is ideologically opposed to you. And so you have a management challenge right away. And then put into perspective that us as a movement have been pretty ineffective in even staffing the 4,000 jobs. The jobs, in Democrat administrations have been ramped up to about 95% fill within 3 months. In Republican administrations, you've seen a level of about 65 tops during the period. So with that remaining 35, who is that? That's holdovers. That's a lot of career federal employees who are working in acting capacities. So that's just political mismanagement for us not being able to fill it. But more than that, we have to make sure the people that we're putting in those positions are actively helping move the president's agenda forward, and that's the task. Working in the federal government is unlike any other profession, really. I like to say I'm a simple country lawyer from Manhattan County, New York. But I worked in these big firms, worked on all the big cases with Chevron Ecuador. If you want to know more about that, I'm the guy who came up with the idea to get the outtakes and found the smoking gun and saved them $27 billion. But I digress. That case was instructive because the folks on the other side of it were the progressives. This was the same folks who now line the White House. Actually, the ringleader of that was the basketball buddy of President Obama from Harvard Law School. So what really showed me as an outsider was how tough our adversary is, how smart and how relentless they are. And it said, if you're really going to get in this game, you're going to have to appreciate what you're going up against, and you're going to have to bring your game. That means we need to practice and prepare, like any person who did sports knows. You have to get ready in the off season. And to credit to our friends on the left, that's exactly what they do. They spend the whole time out of power preparing to seize power and use it effectively. And as on the right, we haven't been so systematic. We are a herd of cats, essentially, that kind of go off and scratch at one another when we're not in power. And then when we are in power, everyone's kind of rushing to the feeding trough. So in using this period out of power, we said to ourselves at Heritage, let's get the movement together. We at Heritage have a 50-year history of really being cultivating the movement, and so many people have worked at Heritage or alongside it that we had a convening power, if you will. So our president, Dr. Roberts, said, let's use that convening power and in the spirit of servant leadership, make this not a Heritage thing, but a movement thing. So to be clear for all the media here, this started, irrespective of any candidate, it was candidate agnostic. It's not President Trump's Project 2025. This was for any candidate. We were very clear about that. But it was unapologetically conservative. We wanted to throw down the marker and say, if you're looking for where to land and you're searching for policy, this is going to be the sweet spot. Now, with the policy book, that was a wish list. We don't expect anybody to enact all those things. And most of what you're reading about Project 2025 is nowhere in the policy book. Surprise! It's just completely made up from the people who brought you the Russia hoax and every other great series of misinformation. It is really electoral interference at some stage, and I'm waiting. I'll keep waiting for them to take it down, but we'll see. The point is that we built a 4-pillar plan, and the idea was to first make a bold vision. We have to, several blocks down the way is Union Station. That was built by Daniel Burnham, the famous architect and city planner, and his motto was make no small plans, because they lack the magic to stir men's souls. So we said to ourselves, what happens if the movement really takes air and flight and we don't have a vision? Let's make sure we get out the vision. And so as much as we could, in the spirit of what they've done here in the last 200 years, citizens coming together in their free time, volunteering, we set up teams and we started writing out kind of a collection of our thoughts. Certainly this was not meted out what the conservative agenda is, but where there were divisions in the movement, we put both sides down. And it was always supposed to be a menu for an eventual candidate to decide which things he liked and which he didn't, or she. And so that was our policy book. For those of you who remember President Reagan, a similar book was given to him, and it became, dare I say here at the National Conservative Convention, a Bible of sorts for the Reagan Revolution that followed. And so this book is nothing new. The project's really nothing new, but it was really to kind of first center everybody and literally get them on the same page and the same route. 2, we built a database, and that's really to help us staff to make recommendations to the official transition team in the future. Come together as a movement and serve as a clearinghouse. 3, we said we have to build this pillar to train people ahead of time, tell them how things are going to work. And then 4, we want to get to work on drafting transition plans that can one day, be the root stock of an eventual transition plan. It's just too late to start in August or September. There's just too much wreckage that has been done in the last 3 years. So that was really the aspiration of Project 2025. And I think what scares the left more than anything is competent conservatives coming together, working, as one. And for those all over the world, that's what we need to do. But more than that, we need to inspire our fellow citizens that you have to come serve. Many people served in the military. Many folks had family members. They made this shared sacrifice over generations. And now it's on us. This is the moment we have to step into the breach. And so it's a big responsibility. I would be remiss if I went to NatCon and didn't close with a Bible quote, because my namesake is St. Paul. But I think what he says is something we should always carry with us. And in his epistle to the Galatians, he says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." So let's not give up. Let's keep working as conservatives, and we're going to make change. Thank you very much.